right.
Okay.
Now we are live. I'm with my man Daxy Perez.
What's up, guys? How you doing? Yeah.
This is episode 13, Trent Talks. We got Daxy Perez. We are going to go into some deep dive, some practical stuff for those of you who are aspiring podcasters or are existing podcasters and are really looking for some additional strategies for growth or to put together some monetization. So Daxy, dude, thanks for being here, man. I am excited to have you. This is fun. I know you and I have gone behind the scenes a little bit on what I've been doing. So it's going to be a lot of excitement for me and a lot of fun for me to be able to introduce everybody else to you and those people that may not know you. So welcome, man, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, dude. I didn't even know that you bought my beta program. So like it was a surprise as we were talking, which is cool. You've taken action. You've kind of know a little bit about Simplecast. You're asking me some smart questions. So yeah.
No, but this is going to be fun. So the one thing everybody always asks, and we're going to start there because I think it bears noting that everybody starts from some point. So how did you get into podcasting? Because in fairness, I mean, your background, you got just over 4 years, right? So
Correct.
You have a short window in your background, but you've got a ton of experience and you've had tons of success.
Yeah.
And I think that's like kudos to you. And I'd like to hear kind of how you got there, what the whole process looked like.
Well, I attribute that to, I'm a fan of shortcuts, and I rather jump on a plane that's already soaring in the sky than have to build a plane myself. And almost like stand on the shoulder of giants. So I got lucky of the connections I made as I was like living a digital nomad life. I was doing so many different things like before, making money different ways. I was actually pretty successful in e-commerce as I was doing freelance podcasting.
Doing what, the dropship thing?
Yeah, back in 2015, I was doing high ticket drop shipping. So not a lot of people were doing it back then. And it was great, but then I got really sick of using Google. I just didn't I don't know. Competition was building up and it was getting a little saturated. But yeah, I was doing high ticket average price from like $300 to like $30,000 for an item. Yeah. All just Google PLA ads. And I got kind of sick of it because it wasn't like my passion. It wasn't what I really cared about. It was literally just monetary. And I didn't see myself doing it for the long term. And I didn't want to build a team and hire around like drop shipping. So I kind of like shifted and got lucky. And as I was networking in Thailand, I was in Thailand and Bali for like 8 months. I met some people who had a big agency already. And I had audio production skills since I was in high school. I used to produce music. I was a big fan of like Deadmau5, still am. And it was interesting.
Sorry.
Yeah. He used to live stream like in 2010 or 8 or something, like just making music in a studio. And I was like,
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Like some of his biggest tracks, I remember when he made it from scratch. And I was like, it completely like changed how I educated myself. I was like learning something that I didn't know from literally someone just live streaming. And I learned how to produce music and audio engineering literally just from YouTube and Deadmau5. So that's how I got into the space. I had some background in audio engineering. And then I got linked into the right people who already had some huge clients. And then once you're in a big agency, you can see everything that's happening. And that's how I learned. Yeah.
Dude, that's cool. Now, okay, side note here. You'll know I like to go on my tangents if you've seen the episodes. Yeah. So you're a big fan of guys like Deadmau5. Have you heard of a guy named Sam Perry?
No. Sam Perry? No.
Go look up Sam Perry. He's a looper. He's a looper. Similar concept. He does all his own stuff. My wife is going to make fun of me for doing this. My wife's like, you're obsessed with this guy. Okay. No, but go check out Sam Perry. He's awesome. Yeah, he's a looper and he does all his own stuff. He ended up winning like America's Got Talent Australia or something like that. But yeah, really good.
I'm going to check him out. I love that stuff. Yeah.
So anyway, back to what we were talking about. All right. So your background you had a background in the music. What would you call it? Audio
engineering, audio production.
Audio engineering. Yeah. Okay. And so that's how you got into this side. So now what made you like just decide, hey, I'm going to start getting into podcasting? Because it's one thing though to like, I get what you're saying about how you viewed people and how you were able to see it happening, but what made you personally like want to dive into podcasting as opposed to like chasing down the music industry and getting into studio editing and stuff like that?
So what's funny is that is still part, like what you just said is kind of my long-term goal, but that is more of, you need a lot of capital for that. So everything I'm doing now is just like accumulate a lot of capital. But I would say what's special about when you start out and you try all the different things is you learn what you like and you don't like. And the reason I started out with e-commerce is because I learned all this. Like I had to learn how to do product research, how to build a website, how to do ad campaigns. I learned a lot. and I figured out what, like, it taught me a lot to apply to any business. So I knew with my audio engineering background and the opportunity that was in podcasting, because I saw behind the scenes the huge like ROI some of our clients were getting, and like how like for some of these people, their shows was the backbone of their business. Like that was literally like the biggest asset in their business. So I knew like a lot of people were missing out on the opportunity. And then I got into like the ClickFunnels space, right? And it's funny, like I'm not going to mention who my agency was, but a lot of people who have podcast agencies now, they run like they're still like in the early like blogging days. Like it's literally just like audio and blogs. But we live in a different world now where hooks are like micro content is way more important now for a podcast. People will consume your content just through micro. Like they won't even like, they'll literally just like know a lot about your podcast just from Instagram. Like, and then eventually as they,
that has to come a lot from like what Gary's done, where he's taken up his podcast and literally just chops everything into 1 minute segments or 30-second segments.
And then as you build trust, then they'll go into your long form content. Because there isn't much organic reach in the platform. And as far as like search engine for podcast, a lot of it has to be, you have to drive the traffic. Unless you have a big list already, then and people already trust you, then they'll listen to you. But if you're starting from scratch, there's definitely strategies I don't think a lot of agencies are implementing, like growth hacking. But a lot of influencers are, because they kind of know the game. So yeah.
Interesting. Now, okay, so I'll come back to. I'm gonna make my note here, so because I'm gonna get sidetracked. There's so many different conversations we can go.
Yeah.
I have to keep myself on task here. Because I do want to come back to that about like you're talking about the micro content, because I think that is something when we discuss that it's super hard to do as a one-man show. That's really hard.
Yeah, it is, because it requires some time and effort, because like you don't. You have to have like unique hooks and be different like through it. And a lot of it is kind of like novelty and like things that are your current hooks are everything right now, man. Like if you can't get people to like, you know, be from like literally just the headlines to like want to listen to your podcast, and you'll have a hard time the whole time. Because there's so much competition.
Let's talk about that for a second. Talk about the hooks, right? Because, you know, obviously my background and where we met is through ClickFunnels and everything else. So I get the hooks as it relates to your funnels.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm new to and just trying to still process through is that how you relate the hooks in the tie-ins to your podcast. Are you talking like descriptions? Is it intros? Is it both?
The whole premise of what you want people of the episode, I would say. So let's say you're about to interview Russell Brunson. Figure out what every episode, what they position Russell Brunson as, and then try to have a different angle. You know, like recently I interviewed Josue Pena, and everyone always asked him about IG, whatever, but I had a different angle. I was like, dude, how'd you get 2 comma clubs so quickly? What were the steps you took to like grow your agency really quickly? Because I saw no one else talking about that. So when he shared it to his audience, they were like, oh, I love Josue, but I haven't heard him talk about this one thing. If I want to hear him talk about this one thing, I have to listen to Daxy's podcast. I got a lot of listeners because of that, because it was something that I shared that was, because you got to think about it like this. The content has to be new to their audience too. It can't just be, you know, what is something that you can have when you're interviewing Russell? What is something that you could talk about with him that his audience hasn't heard from him? You know?
That's a challenge.
Yes. And that takes some brain power and, you know, it's a little bit of pre-thought and, usually after post-interview too, you can think about something that you talked about. That could be a good hook. But it is a challenge, but it is what is the most important thing I think right now.
Interesting. Now, with that, do you find that you're shortening, and we'll get into the real technical soon, but do you find that you're shortening down your podcast when you do that?
What do you mean shortening?
Okay, so for example, like right now on this show, you know, we generally run anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. I think 40, like 44 and a half, 45 minutes is the longest we've gone. But that ends up being, you know, like we talk about people's background, and then we begin to like kind of overview of different topics, and then start diving in where we kind of find little fun rabbit trails to run on of stuff that's kind of new and cool. Yeah. Whereas if you're focusing specifically on something that's totally different, it would seem that you're bringing a much more short and narrow focus to the interview. And so at that point, are you then shortening down your interviews at that point?
That's just one aspect of it. So we can like, so I hook, like for Hosteways, just keep that example. That was the hook, but then I got into different rabbit holes. We started talking about Facebook groups, and then IG stories, IGTV, and then hiring and stuff. So it's literally like, it's just a hook, you know?
So you could so you could still cover the entire aspect like you usually would, but what you're doing is you're bringing a focus and a perspective maybe early on in the interview that is way different than what most people are experiencing from that person.
Correct. As far as for your micro content,
That makes sense.
Look at YouTube, man. Like, look at what's getting clicked.
It's true.
I click videos on YouTube, and I'm like, this was not what the title was, you know. And I'm a marketer, so I can figure out. I can rewind. Like, I can in my head, I'm like, these guys.
Yeah, we're looking at
the
like,
average.
He got
the
me
average
clickbait.
person.
How did he get me?
Yeah, the average person though doesn't think about that. They just get, they get hypnotized, if it's good.
Interesting.
So
yeah,
you want to be ethical about it too,
Well, yeah, we know that. I mean, we know long term, if you're a clickbait person, long term it's just not going to work. You're not going to be successful, and people will get tired of your clickbait crap and be like, I'm out of here. That guy's annoying.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to talk real quick. We're going to go over podcast launches.
Yes.
So anybody that is now, here's the thing. When you look at a launch? Because I know obviously you guys have done a lot, and you have your challenge coming up for launches, which we're going to get into as well towards the end. Anybody that's viewing this, stay to the end. Daxy's got an awesome challenge coming up for you that you, trust me, don't want to miss out on.
Yeah, not a lot of people. You're the first person I told. So yeah,
I'm the first one.
Yeah,
yes.
Other than the people like on our team. Yeah,
awesome. Well, he told me about it before the show. We were sitting in the lobby, and if you watch this right now, you want to be at the end. If you're listening to this in a replay, you want to stay to the end to hear his challenge. It's killer. But as far as launches, when you look at launches, do you look at both the brand new, and do you ever do relaunches?
So we've actually been approached recently from a few people who want to do a relaunch, and there's a few factors to consider. One is like if you already have a lot of subscribers and stuff, it depends. Like we like to kind of keep things where they're at, because the whole point of a launch is to really leverage the algorithm to get into new and noteworthy, or if you're really, really pivoting from your message, if it's completely different. So it's a very dynamic situation. And honestly, we haven't done it enough to know like what's the good, the bad, the ugly. But relaunches in the long term, it doesn't matter because that's what a podcast is, a long term thing.
What's your window for like an early on launch? When you consider a launch, is a launch in a 30-day window? Is it a 60-day window? What's your overall window?
We do 30-day windows with clients. We have each week and like almost the days planned out as far as what to get prepped, content, strategy, launch, giveaway campaign. But if it's like a one-man show, you can get it up in like 2 to 3 weeks easy.
Gotcha.
From having no idea to launch. So yeah.
Nice. Okay. So what would you look when someone is saying? Because this is a question that I know I've had before, and you hear a lot of different answers out there, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. Is there a specific number that episodes you should have before you're launching?
Minimum, you want to launch with 3. And I like to have at least 2 weeks of episodes prepared, like be 2 weeks ahead of time, so you're not stressed. Okay. So if it depends on how much you want to produce, so whatever you want to commit to. If you want to do 1 episode a week because you're a super busy person and it's going to be, you can only commit 1 hour a week, then have 2 episodes ready, 2 or 3. If you want to do daily, then have 2 weeks ready. It depends on what you're going to commit to, the amount, and setting the right expectations, knowing how much time it's going to take, per episode. Track your time it takes you per episode, and then figure out, all right, I need to commit this much time per week. Can I commit to that? So
now, how do you feel about the blend of when people do like a blend of shows? For example,
I love it.
We mentioned Gary Vee ahead of time, right? Gary strips everything in there. He's got his Ask Gary Vee shows. He's got his all of his keynotes. He's got little like nuggets and snippets and mashups from his daily V, where you get like D-Rock and those guys just following him around all day long.
Yeah. So
what are your thoughts on the whole mix?
Yeah. So first of all, Gary's at a different level.
Of course.
He has a team of just his personal brand team is 25 plus people.
We actually had Andy was actually our second interview on here, and that was a great interview. Andy Kranak, his brand director.
Oh man, that's freaking awesome.
You have to go back and listen to that one.
I'm gonna do that.
He's awesome.
I'm gonna do that, man. Probably interviewing. So I always like giving people different flavors of content and seeing what sticks and giving some variety, just to really test and experiment, because it is your audience is special and unique. So you want to figure out what they resonate with most. Right. I'm a fan. Obviously, it depends your business model and what your industry you're in, but I'm a fan of mixing it up with interviews and solo, because the whole point of having a podcast is so you can grow yourself, like your name, your brand. True. Personally, because there's a lot of big podcasts, and I don't want to throw heat at anybody that started early, like 8 years ago, and they're the top podcast, you know, but
right.
People don't really know the person. They just know that they have a big podcast and they interview big people. But then like,
well, I'll throw one out there. Like, for example, okay, like you have JLD.
Yeah, you read my mind.
Okay. And I had a feeling that's where you're going. Like, I like JLD's podcast. Like, I listen to it. You know, you have all these amazing entrepreneurs that come on there, and it's a cool podcast. If anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, it's Entrepreneurs on Fire. It's a great podcast. But at the same time, like, I personally don't know, and I follow JLD on Instagram and stuff. I personally, like, I don't know anything about him.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes, I get what you're saying about the ability to, in his situation, it's like he's built the podcast brand and not necessarily as much the JLD brand.
Yeah. And I think he's just it all comes from where he started. That worked before, you know, because there wasn't a lot of people doing it. So it's fine for him. He was an early mover, so he can do that. But I just don't want people to feel like that's the only way to do it, because everyone's doing that. Everyone can interview people. But you know, honestly, and a lot of it too is for yourself. Just getting comfortable talking about your opinions and your viewpoints and creating your own uniqueness. I think it's hard to be unique when you're always highlighting other people. But nowadays, like, the biggest thing that will grow your podcast is like, why are you different? Why are you unique? You can only do that if you're talking to people and getting your opinions out there. So yeah.
You know, that's a really good point. And obviously, because you and I have talked, and anybody that's followed kind of my process here with Trent Talks knows I started out end of February. I've been doing this. And the majority of these are, you know, they're all just the shows, the interviews like we're doing here, where it's the face-to-face, and we do them all live. And as the audience grows, we'll be able to have even more engagement and people ask questions. And, you know, long-term, I'd like to be able to get people on here, do case studies and bring them on, and it'll allow them to, like, we bring a podcast on down the road, and you and I hop in here and we have a third person that with their podcast and say, okay, here's how we fix it here. Boom, boom, boom. And you do it live for other people to be able to absorb that same information. But it's really interesting because you say that, because I was actually I have a kind of a little snippet we're going to be starting. I think it's next week. I'm looking at trying to find my calendar, but doing like my own little, like, 5 good minutes, to where you start to bring more value of how I help people and stuff. So it's really interesting you say that, because that's something I was wondering if, like, how I think that would be received, and what the perception would be like on that.
Yeah,
I think there's a fear of trying to be too much self promo.
Yeah, I don't believe in that. There's people who just have solo podcast. You know, like, my whole philosophy is, like, it should just build your personal brand and your personal business. Obviously, if, like, and so I'm not talking about just selling on podcasts. I'm talking about if you're if it's like 5149, it's always them first, and, you know, putting your best foot forward to help people and actually give them something to, like, do after they listen to your content and to solve their problems. If you're not solving people's problems or their desires, then they have no reason to listen to you on repeat.
Well, that makes sense. I think that's the way. That's the point. Like we talked about a little bit in the broadcast.
I'm talking about an art industry. I'm talking about an art industry. Like, if you're like in the entertainment industry, if you just want to make people laugh, then that's a whole different thing.
Of course. In our industry, where you're a service-based, we both run service-based businesses. I run a media company, and I know you do the podcast, but I know you have a bunch of other things you're doing as well. you have your podcast agency, I should say, is the way to say it.
And
go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, pretty much that. It left my mind. Yeah.
That happens to me too. But no, but definitely, I think that's a huge point, is that when you're in the service thing, it is about being able to be, like we talked about in the broadcast room beforehand. It's about being that, you know, being primarily altruistic of nature. Yeah. Like, if your motives are good and you genuinely are there to help people, and it's not meant to be a money grab, it's not meant to be just a big brand grab for you, then then people will see that, and that's at least my intention of how to build a following down as we go. Yeah.
And it just came back to me, and it's okay if you're not the expert either. You can learn with your audience as long as you're honest and transparent, and you let people know where you're at and what you're trying to do. And, you know, really, really try to bring value, like, think in their shoes, what they want to hear, what they want to listen to, and really get an understanding of them. I think people really relate to that, because then they feel like, you know, this is like, is like me. This is something that I can, you know, have a part of my life. This could be a community I could be around. So yeah.
Well, I think that's also where the value of, like we're talking here, the interviews come in.
Yes.
Because, for example, I mean, like you know, I mean, I understand a podcast. I have one now because of the show, but, like, I'm not a podcast expert. You know, I had Brian Bowman on here the other day, and Brian's brilliant when it comes to e-commerce, you know, And I had John Parks on here Tuesday, and we all know John's phenomenal when it comes to driving paid traffic.
Yes.
You know, I know paid traffic. I've been doing this since 2008. John knows it better. I mean, it is what it is.
And something I brought up in my last episode, it was a really interesting concept. It was called the biggest sabotage people make, or the biggest sabotage to people's success with podcast. And it has to do with, I call it the abundance over scarcity mentality. And don't be scared of interviewing your competition or people who are in the same industry as you. Because if you're like, some of my best interviews, and like literally like my business partner was someone that could have been perceived as competition for me. Because I was like, oh, he's starting in the podcasting world. He wants to start an agency too. Why should I interview him and give him my audience? But then that's a scarcity. Like if you are scared of that, then you're not focused on giving people value, and like you don't believe in yourself pretty much, because you think so don't be scared of interviewing people who are just like you. Because
some of the best dialogue comes out of that.
Yes.
Some of the most value, because like, for example, like I'm sitting here talking with John. I know my way around paid ads. I know around marketing, branding, content distribution. I know it, but I don't know it like John does when it comes to paid ads. But yet I can still have an intelligent conversation with him. And some of the stuff that came out of the conversation, I called a buddy of mine, a colleague. I'm like, hey, you got to listen to the end of this. Like I went back and I listened to it myself, hearing what John and I were talking about, like just taking notes. I'm like, that's freaking amazing.
Super high level.
Because I knew at least enough of the industry to be able to ask him the right questions. And I think that's huge. That was something I was somewhat concerned about early on when I was putting together my guest list. I'm like, do I want to have other people in who have agencies, or how do I want to do that? And I think that's a really, really smart point.
I think about it as collaboration over competition, because their audience has the people who would if they're listening to them, then they obviously will listen to you. And vice versa, if your audience will actually gravitate towards that because they're like you. I just think it's very smart thing. Like if you're a health coach, like a lot of health coaches, like they would be like, I'm not going to interview other health coaches because I'm supposed to be that person. Well, now you're coming from a place of ego and thinking that you know everything. Totally. I like to interview other podcasters and people starting agencies and people who have media, because they might not know something that I don't know. And they might bring value to my audience. And I'm not as scared that my audience will follow them, because like, I don't come from, like, I'm from the abundant mentality, like, and my audience like appreciates that, because I interview all these big people. Exactly. So
it really is.
And it's just great. So that's what that episode, I got a lot of good feedback on it. Like the biggest sabotage people.
What episode? What biggest sabotage? All right.
I'm the number one, the biggest sabotage to a podcaster success. I called it.
To podcaster success.
Yeah.
Done. I'm gonna listen to it. I've always got podcast streaming anyway while I'm working, so it's like,
Awesome.
Cool. All right. So we talked about the launch. So what are the key things that you need to watch out for when you're growing a podcast?
Key things you need to watch out for. How so? Or like keep track of?
Mistakes. Well, okay. Two things. What are the things you want to track to be able to make changes and to be able to adjust as you grow? And what are the mistakes to avoid?
Okay. The mistakes to avoid is not having, if you're not getting engagement from your audience, and that's a bad sign that people aren't being like touched by it. And you have to tell people to engage with your audience and let them know, like, hey, if you think something about this, share it on social media, let me know, etc. So I think the biggest mistake is that people don't incentivize people to take action. They think it's just like entertainment. People are going to listen and that's it. Train your listeners to take action on whatever. Like if you just talked about something, tell them now, go implement it and go do this and then come back. Let me know what results you got, etc. Train them to go back and forth with you, because you can have a podcast that has a low amount of listeners, but they're very engaged and attentive. And and while you can have a podcast that have a lot of listeners, but they're like, they're not giving you money. They're not giving you time, attention. They're just listening. And because you're letting them just go away, So yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Have conversations with your listeners. I'm always in the DMs with people.
You make a point to have CTA, like call to actions, on every one of your podcasts. Not necessarily call to actions like go buy this, but look, go implement this, like make this change, make that change.
Yeah. Before your outro, your last 30 seconds to a minute should always kind of be the same, I would say, to get people accustomed to whatever. Like I say like 95% should be value. And at the end, tell them like, hey, if you found value in this, like if you want to hop on a phone call and you want us to help you out more, just let me know. And we can do that. So it's really easy to get podcast listeners on phone calls. A lot of people don't try that, but it's like, yeah. And even if you have nothing to sell them, just talk to them figure out what their pain points are, their desires, and then just win them over one by one.
Because it helps you grow what you're sharing on the podcast as well. It helps you fine tune your episodes and the things that whether it's an episodic or serial type thing, you can fine tune what you're doing.
Yeah, and it builds loyalty a lot. Like when I DM people, they're more willing to listen to my next episode. And like
interesting.
Because they feel like they're talking like they know me, and podcasting is get people to know, like, and trust you. That if the more they know, like, and trust you, the more they know, like, and trust you, the more they'll keep listening to you. So yeah.
All right. Now the fun one. Everybody always asks about this because once you have a podcast, okay, and this is where I know Gary's stance. Gary says wait as long as you can to monetize everything.
That's kind of my stance too.
Okay, so what would you look at from a determining factor from somebody if you're growing a podcast? Because I know that there's a couple different outside factors. One can be are you like in a spot where you're hurting and needing money?
Yeah,
that can affect your timing of monetization, but also like just your patience level. Some people are just not patient.
Yeah.
What are your takes on time frame, size, etc.?
Yeah, so it's a very like broad question, and it really depends on the person and where they're at in life. There's so many ways you can monetize from a podcast that has nothing to do with like the listener. It could be leveraging that you are on the it's speaking gigs or stuff like that. I try to tell people, like, if you're trying to make money quick, podcasting is not the quickest way to make money. But if you want to make it for the long term, it's a great way. And it's a bottom of the value ladder thing. So you want to test bottom of the value ladder commitments for people, just to get people to sign up for your messenger bot or for your email list for whatever. And then the selling happens in different locations. People don't have their wallet out. They don't have, they're listening to you in the car while they're working out, while they're walking their dog. So it's not like a selling environment. At least in America, people aren't trained to sell or to buy from a podcast. You want to lead them to the place where they can buy from you. But it is great when you do have that audience and you have that connection to ask people what they want, pull them, survey them, and then eventually make a product from that. It depends your business model. If you're coaching, podcasting is so easy to make money. If you're a coach.
Because you can tell people, look, if you want one-on-one help, reach out, that type thing.
Yeah. And you can always just do so many discovery calls and then just sell them on the phone. And then it's very easy for coaches to make money nowadays. Things like masterminds events obviously is a more long-term thing. Once you build trust and such, but affiliate marketing is another good way to make money. If you just give your honest recommendations about things, or you just drop the links in the, like if I make an episode about equipment, I'll probably just drop some links. Because if it's valuable, people will actually buy the equipment.
Right.
It's
what's interesting is I would imagine there's a certain ratio that you have to figure out about when you're pitching stuff at the end of your shows versus just, hey, look, just giving value and tell me what you think. I mean, do you have kind of I know it's not probably a fixed ratio, but anything mentally where you're like, all right, maybe every few episodes I'll put out a pitch, or do you do it every single one of them?
Every single one. Because if they made it that, not lately, I haven't right now, just because like that's not.
You've had a lot.
My goal is not to monetize off the podcast right now. It's just to get people to listen, and then go to my Facebook group, and then commit to more, just to diversify them on other platforms. And get in my messenger bot, et cetera, download my freebies, just to get them on another list. That's my goal right now. And then on those lists, I'll do whatever I want. But I'm not. It's completely fine if someone listens to you for 20 minutes. They're obviously listening to you, and they're
getting value, otherwise they wouldn't be there.
Yeah, if they made it that far, like, you deserve 30 seconds to tell them, hey, if you like this and you want to speak to me more, here's this. If not, then it's cool. Just give them the option. Gotcha. At least. Don't come off like super salesy. Just give them the option. So gotcha. like one client we're working with, they're really, really, really big, 2 Comma Club, and the fitness space, like helping fitness service business, like gyms and stuff, better their marketing. And every episode is like 20 minutes straight value about their experiences, about how they help clients, et cetera. And then at the end, they're like, hey, if you want us to help you with these specific problems, we can hop in a phone call, just go to this link, and then that's it.
Interesting.
Alex Sharfin does that at the end of every episode. I don't know if you listen to his podcast.
I do listen to this sometimes.
Because it's literally, he gives so much value.
He is always dropping value. I got to give him that.
Because he gives so much value, he's allowed to do that. Like at the end, like it's fine. Like I'm comfortable. Like,
I
kudos
guess
to
that's a
him.
good point. It's like if you're giving that much away for free,
Because people might want to go to the next step. You might
right?
evoke an emotion in someone, and they're like, "Dang, I need this." And if you're not giving them that option to go to the next step, then you're dropping the ball.
You're almost doing them a disservice by not giving them the ability to take the next step in their business, podcast, whatever it is they want to take that step in. If you're just like, "Oh, great, glad you enjoyed it, bye,"
etc. Or why did I say etc.? I said exactly. Why did I say etc.?
I was I heard exactly, even though you said etc.
Yeah, they're almost similar. Yeah.
But okay. So then how big are you? I know you're big on automation.
Yes. Love it.
And we were just talking a little bit, and you were talking about even early on, especially early on, really try to automate.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some of your biggest tips automating?
Well, like you said, if it's like in the beginning, if it's just a one-man show, figure out what the MVP is, what's the biggest like 80-20 of promoting your podcast is. Obviously, uploading it is pretty big. So you want to have that up on the list, recording it. And then I would say for most people is having, templating a lot of things out so it doesn't take a lot of brain effort in the start.
Gotcha.
Templating out your show notes and then having that all organized and like a Trello board or something. So, and then having a checklist. All right, I recorded 10 episodes. Now let's put these through the checklist, which is like, just upload it.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Create this one graphic. Don't go over the top. Just figure out what's the one thing you can do at the start. What's the one platform you can share it. And then just get comfortable with that. And then eventually you could probably hire someone to do these small little tasks for you.
That was even my next question. At what point in time is it strictly a monetary decision of when you hire someone, or is there a spot where you say, all right, I've got X amount of
I would say it's more
that I'm doing.
It's a time decision. So once you start auditing, like, hey, it's taking me 40 minutes to edit my podcast because I like it to edit it this way. Figure out where you can save the most time. And then obviously that's saving money too if you save that time, So yeah, figure out what's taking you the most time and brain power, like what's not your zone of genius. And then, you can easily find people for cheap to do this one little task, whether it's to make little images for you for each episode or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Cost-wise, how vast is the cost on stuff like that, man?
It depends. Audio editing usually, if you want everything edited out, like ums and like stutters and like fully clean, it depends how long your episodes is. Usually like 30-minute episodes we see for like $20 to $30. Yeah, it's pretty reasonable. You can work out better deals with people if you do bulk.
Right. If you contract them for a lot of episodes and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah. We do hourly for the people we pay. And it depends. We make it really easy for people, so we have a lower rate than most people. But yeah, you can find someone for hourly for $3 an hour, like on Philippines. And as long as you
now,
let them know
where do you find them though? You go to like Fiverr,
onlinejobs.ph or Upwork.
Upwork or
just make a job listing, like literally, like, so document everything you do, and then literally in your job application, hey guys, this is everything I do. This is what I need someone to do for me. This is what I'm willing to pay. Obviously have like requirements and responsibilities afterwards, and then just start testing people, give them test projects. Gotcha. And then if you feel like someone does a good job, that's it. Like it works out very well in the long run. So yeah.
All right, cool. All right, man, that's a ton. I'm going to have you back on here. We're going to I do. If you're open to that, I think I would like to do that at some point. We'll have to find somebody that is interesting in whether they're doing a launch or they've got a podcast, and we're going to go through and problem solve and do a live problem. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Dude, that's a great idea. I would love to do that.
All right. We are going to hook it up, and we'll get you back on here and do that for sure. So when we get you out here, I'll get you the link, and we'll reschedule it and figure a day. But so tell people what you got going on before I let you go. Tell them what you got going on and how they can get a hold of you if they want help.
Yeah. So if you guys want help from me, just listen to my podcast Success Secrets. You can find it, just search that or search Daxy Perez or join my Facebook group, Podcast Success Secrets. Right now, literally like kind of what we talked about, I'm just giving information and sharing everything I know. And honestly, like I've been interviewing a lot of big podcasters recently who are doing cool and unique things to grow, just because I want to learn what people are doing out there. And then you guys can learn with me, So there's been a lot of cool value dropped in the Facebook group lately.
We'll put both those links, by the way, guys. It'll be in the description.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And then, Yeah, like you said, I don't know when this is going to air, but we're launching a 21-day launch challenge. We're only going to take 10 people in the start because it's going to be like, we're going to do your artwork, your intro, outro. We're going to give you.
What's the date that's launching? Because this will probably be.
So we're launching the
11th. Yeah. Go ahead.
We're launching the 15th, and then it starts like the 22nd. But we're gonna have that. That's gonna be going through. So if you ever go to the page again after it launches, there'll be a waiting list, and you could join. Because the next round won't be application based. It'll be anybody. Because we just want to kind of refine it, do our MVP with a few people first, get awesome results, get awesome testimonials.
What's the launch
page? It's going to be. That's a great question. I think it's podcast.
We'll put that in the description too.
Yeah, we'll put that, yeah. Because that, I don't know if it's going to be a URL or if it's going to be like a special
domain underneath your site.
Correct. Yeah, we've just built the funnel so far, and I forget what it's at. Yeah, we're super excited about that because I feel like that's we can offer a lot of like advice and expertise to people, and a lot of people just need accountability. They just need to know like, hey, you don't need education, you don't need tech skills, you don't need experience to be a good podcast. You just need to start doing it. And
but that's huge. 21 days, and if you're somebody who's looking to do a podcast, you've considered starting it. 21 days, you can have a podcast up and launched. Your automation's in place. Your process for scheduling guests, everything in place.
Yeah, built around
huge value.
Yeah, built around your uniqueness and your differentiation. Because we look at podcasting like a relationship. And if it's something you can't commit to for the long term, then there's a problem. We don't really like gimmicky podcasts where they're like, like I want to try this out. We don't like trying out podcasts. We want to create something that's like going to be a huge part of you. And yeah, podcasting is really awesome right now because that's how I like it more than any other platform because people can't really judge you that hard. As far as on YouTube and stuff,
you can't get trolled as hard.
Yes, on YouTube, because no one's gonna like troll your reviews really, unless you're really bad. YouTube, or you're lying. YouTube, people can see your subscribers, they can see the amount of views you're getting, so you'll get judged by. On Instagram, they'll be like, "Oh, you only have this many followers, you're only getting this many likes." Like people will judge you hard. Podcasting, it just has to look good and look professional, and then everything else speaks for itself. And it's really easy.
It's a way to get in comfortably. It seems like a very good way to get in, especially if you have your own insecurities and like you feel a little awkward and you're trying to make yourself more comfortable. Like you just said, I never thought of that. That is actually probably the best way in thinking of it, to be able to get into giving information and distributing content regularly without the uncomfortableness of having to deal with trolls.
Yes, very true. Because there is like, it's an intentional thing. It's not really in feeds, really. The micro content is, but people have to go to your episode, download it. So you'll get the right people. One listen is worth a lot of weight to like one view versus somewhere else, or one like, because they're not deep, So yeah.
Awesome. Daxy, man, I appreciate it. I'm gonna let you go. We're definitely gonna get scheduled. So if you got anybody watching this, make sure to reach out to me or Daxy if you want to be on the next one, because we're gonna get somebody in and we're gonna have them bring their podcast on. And Daxy's going to politely tear it apart and say, "This is what you fix."
Yes, I would love to do that, even with my partner or.
Dude, hey, we can get up to 5-6 people in the group here, and maybe what we'll just do it talk show style, get a big 5-6 people in here, and help someone fix their podcast.
Yeah, I was actually like, so I've done like a live where it was like 3 people, and it was so fun, and I feel like more people should do that, just like multiple people. It just it's engaging. So yeah, I would love to do that, man.
Awesome. Dude, appreciate it. Guys, Daxy Perez, we're going to have all of his information, his links. By the way, you follow him on Instagram.
Yeah.
I am Daxy, right?
Daxy,
or it's I am. Okay,
so I am Daxy,
I am Daxy on Instagram. I'm real Trent. Daxy, thanks for being here, man. And till next time, love you guys. This is Trent Talks, and I'm out. Have a good day.
Peace out, guys.
I really hope you enjoyed and got a lot of value of this video. If you did, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment below. I'm going to be answering all the comments myself. And also, come find me on your favorite social media platform and tell me what else I can help you with.